Ooh, another white boy with a podcast. Pronouns, Jim Bro. Another white boy with a podcast. You want to see the video? It went viral.
Hi Gains Gurus, and welcome to TMGP, the Muscle Growth Podcast, episode 35. I am your host, Roscoe, and today we are welcoming Emanuel Pescari onto the show for part 1 of his 2-part series. Emanuel Pescari is a highly accomplished Austrian strongman, widely regarded as one of the top competitors in the under 105kg category. Born on June 12, 1990, he has made an incredible mark in the world of strength sports since beginning his competitive career in 2017. His exceptional feats of strength have earned him numerous titles, including Austria's Strongest Man in the open class in 2022 and 2023, as well as Europe's Strongest Man in the under 105kg class in 2023. He also claimed 3 consecutive Austria's Strongest Man under 105kg titles from 2017 to 2019 and secured silver at the 2023 official Strongman Games in the under 105kg World Championship. Beyond his national and continental victories, Pescari has demonstrated his dominance on the world stage. He secured 3rd place at the World Log Lift Championship in Lithuania and holds the European under 105kg log lift record with an astounding 180kg lift, later becoming the first in his class to press a 190kg log, a world record. His ability to compete against athletes in the open weight class, despite being in the under 105kg category, underscores his incredible power and versatility. Additionally, he set the under 105kg European Atlas Stone record with a 200kg lift and has achieved a 350kg deadlift with a suit and straps in competition. In addition to his competitive success, Emanuel Pescari is also a strength coach and a movement and performance therapy specialist. His expertise extends beyond lifting, as he is dedicated to helping others optimize their strength and movement through specialized therapy. His participation in team events like the Germany vs. Austria team competition, where he secured a 2nd place finish, further highlight his ability to excel in diverse strongman challenges. Pescari's remarkable strength, technical skill, and dedication to the sport make him a standout figure in the strength and fitness community. Whether dominating the competition floor or coaching others to achieve peak performance, he continues to inspire and redefine the limits of strength. In today's episode, we dive into a wide range of insights. Some of the topics include Emanuel's journey into the army, getting army fit, the transition into strongman training, the Golgi tendon organ, GTO, methods to unlock greater force output like static holds and heavy carries, Pescari's world record attempt goals for the year, including a new world record log lift attempt and Zercher squat attempt, Emanuel's past world record titles, having the EU record Atlas Stone under his belt, the potential for going for a new deadlift world record, muscle fiber recruitment, muscle firing rate, the stack for aiding injury recovery, including the famous Wolverine stack of the peptides BPC 157 and TB 500, working as a nurse for a decade and gaining the insight to the importance of aging well and longevity, PEDs, pulling trucks, tractors, planes, and even tanks, being the strongest man in Austria, and so much more. Get ready for a truly informative episode. Quick, shameless self-plug. I'm starting to upload consistently on Reps with Roscoe on YouTube, so check that out for some epic fitness content. A little disclaimer. This show does not contain medical advice, The views and opinions expressed by guests on the Muscle Growth podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect my beliefs or the stance of the podcast. While we aim to provide valuable insights and information, it's important to approach all topics with critical thinking. I encourage you to do your own research, consider multiple perspectives, and form your own conclusions. Healthy discussion is always welcome, and I'm happy to engage with listeners in their comments to continue the conversation. Lastly, don't forget to follow us on all major social media platforms, including Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and X. Find us at the Muscle Growth Podcast and myself at Reps with Roscoe. Welcome, Emanuel, to the Muscle Growth Podcast, where we explore subjects related to muscle science and hypertrophy. I'm thrilled to have you join us for today's conversation. Can you briefly introduce yourself and your journey into the world of strength, sports, and coaching?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for the opportunity to be your guest here, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. So, yeah, I'm two times world champion in the Strongman U105 category. I'm Europe's strongest man in the U105 category. I'm a professional strongman, quote unquote, if you want to say so. I'm full-time strength coach, mostly online strength coach, and also mostly focused on strongman or strength training in general, but I also do coach some general population, and I also had some bodybuilding athletes as well in my coaching. Everything started basically in 2007. Yeah, in 2007 when I prepared for the army. I was 16 years old. I was overweight, and yeah, I wanted to get to the army. So my goal was to be ready and to build some muscle, get athletic, and the thought was to be overall pretty good. So that's what that basic athletic training, I would say, a bit more specialized towards like soldier training or special forces training, if you want to call it like that. And yeah, that's my introduction to strength training. I'm training now. So I started in my garage, and I have now my gym in the garage again. So after all these years, everything happened. So everything is now again at the starting point, basically.
Do you have a gym in your garage now because of COVID?
Yeah. So I started at the beginning in the garage and I trained in the garage 1 year approximately until I went to the army, and I went after to other gyms and stuff like that. And yeah, I got my driving license, car and stuff. And in 2017, I got after into Strongman. And for Strongman, it's especially because I'm living in Austria, so there's only one gym. Until back then was only one gym, or not commercial gym, but open gym for the public, which had Strongman equipment. But this one was in Vienna, so that's 1.5 hours from me. I found on Facebook a colleague of mine from school, that's a pretty funny coincidence, who wasn't living that far from here, and he had a gym with all the Strongman equipment. And in 2019, so quite a bit before COVID and everything, he decided to stop his gym and sold me pretty much all of his stuff. So yeah, since 2019, I have my own gym now.
So you got a good deal on all that equipment.
Yeah, so it was really a blessing from God, because it was prior to all the COVID madness and price increases and everything. So it was really, really good.
You didn't try and get it back when COVID hit?
No. Now, just recently, so last year or something like that, yeah, half a year ago, I went and picked up some other stuff, which is still kept, because he thought he might start again, but he was like, no, I don't need anything anymore.
Okay. And did you serve in the army, or was it just military preparation?
Yeah, so I was after 3 years in the army, and I did quite a lot. I was some kind of like in German it's called hunter, so it's like the on the first row of the battlefield, basically, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, we had quite a lot of stuff going on with running and hiking and carrying all the weapons. I got introduced to quite a lot of weapons to how to handle them and how to work with them and stuff, and it was pretty nice overall. So yeah, it was a nice time.
What was your favorite weapon?
It was our STG 77, if I'm not wrong, one, because that's actually a pretty good weapon and it's pretty robust. It's not that heavy, and it's also quite good on distance. So you can, if you're a good shooter, you can around 200 to 300 meters shoot easily. You know, so you just have to be quite good, but it's actually not that such a distance weapon, you know, but it's pretty versatile and it's also easy to clean and everything. So yeah, that's quite a good weapon.
Not that it being heavy would be a problem for you.
Yeah. Yeah, back then that's
A different story.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been some time. Yeah.
But do you think you fell in love with the gym and strength training in that year leading up to get your body fit for the army? And then throughout the army, I guess you had to be fit, and there was lots of gym and nutrition and focus for you and for the army people in general?
Yeah, so I think the introduction which I had to strength training was a bit unique in that sense that I got introduced with, of course, some typical bodybuilding training because I'm originally from Romania, and I was born in Romania, but I was only 9 months old when my parents came to Austria. And my dad did some kind of bodybuilding in Romania. And when he came here, he built his own equipment, and that's how I got after started. And he introduced me a bit into bodybuilding training. But because of this idea that, yeah, I have to be some kind of athlete, I have to be all around, that also meant for me, yeah, I have to be able to run. I have to be able to have a lot of endurance. I have to be able to sprint. I have to be able to do a lot of crazy agility moves and stuff like that. So I had all these things kind of integrated into my training besides building muscle, losing fat, and building overall hypertrophy, basically.
You mentioned that you didn't just want to do the bodybuilding, and that you were more keen on the all-round kind of approach, like the well-rounded strength, distance, and obviously hypertrophy. It wasn't just the bodybuilding, even though I think you mentioned that your dad introduced you to the bodybuilding type training. What made you decide, I don't just want to do that, I want to have a little bit of everything and be super strong and big, etc., etc.?
Yeah, so the idea was, when my dad introduced me to bodybuilding and to strength training, it wasn't pure bodybuilding because it was some kind of mixture of everything, but it was very heavily influenced by Arnold's time and maybe a bit more into the silver era with some other crazy movements and stuff like that. So I had also already quite a nice start from the beginning, but the idea was also, I want to get ready for the army and I want to be a good soldier, kind of like special ops kind of stuff, you know? So that's why I knew, okay, I don't only have to be muscular and strong, but I also have to be endurance. So I have to be able to run a lot, to carry a lot. I have to be able to be fast. So sprinting and stuff like that. I have to be able to do this crazy stuff with crawling and rolling around on the floor and jumping and all these things. So there was always this idea for me that I have to be prepared for everything from the very beginning. And that's how I also trained after that. I was pretty much my training was 1 day strength training. So I focused on moving heavy weights. but also after, with more isolation exercises and stuff like that, a bit more focused on higher reps, so getting volume, acquiring a bit of volume and stuff. And the days in between was running and jumping and stuff like that. And most of the time I went in running not only on the street, but I also went like directly through the forest, jumping and running through rivers and stuff like that. So it was like really hardcore. And I tried to implement everything as good as I knew, I just did stuff. That's it, basically.
That's so cool. And how would you say that training has changed to what you do now? Is it more strength focused, or do you still do a little bit of everything? Are you still able to run as quickly as you used to, or is it now more, because obviously you're a world record holder, is it now more focused?
It depends of the phase. It's of course it's a lot more strength focused, and over the years I also developed quite a lot of muscles, of hypertrophy.
Yeah, that's why you're here.
I'm also quite blessed with certain body parts being very very developed, like my biceps or my calves, where I'm already going that far to say, I don't even want to have that big of a bicep. And okay, calves that don't hinder me at all, but bicep, like for cleans and stuff like that, it's a bit, but that's another story, Yeah. So no, I lost my train of thought.
No worries. I think that most of the people listening here wish they had the same problem as you with biceps being too big. I think a lot of the people on the listening to the Muscle Growth podcast are going to be very envious of you.
Now I got it. Yeah, that's why I don't like to mention this, because I know people might not get offended, but they are like, what is this guy talking about? I want to have bigger biceps and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, but it's an interesting one. Like you're saying, you can be too big for specific things. Like a bodybuilder is probably, some, obviously you get different size bodybuilders, but some of them might be too big to be really good at a certain sport. Maybe they used to be really good at, because they're literally just too big. For example, maybe some of the open guys would not be fantastic tennis players or fantastic at another sport, or soccer players or something. They're just too big. And I'm not saying that a big bodybuilder can't be good at sport, because I know many that are really good at sport and they're big, so they got everything. But maybe there's a cut off between being too big and then being really, really in the top 1% or the 1% at a particular sport. And that's the trade-off that you've got to make. But it sounds like you found a cool sport where you can get bigger and bigger in strength, and it's not going to hinder you. If anything, obviously you've got your weight cap to manage, but other than that, you can pretty much get more muscle up until, unless you want to go to the next category, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's, if you know a bit the story, or if someone from your audience knows the story from Bruce Lee, he got also into strength training after a while, and he discovered, if he's gaining muscle and he's gaining strength, he's getting faster. But up to a certain point, because after that certain point, he observed he's getting now actually slower. And that's something what he didn't want, because for him, like, speed was king, basically. So that's why he stopped after, and he didn't stop completely. He just reduced the amount of volume to not build even further muscles and get slower. So yeah, for us in strength coaching and training, for not only for strength sports, but for different other sports, it always depends about the goal and the requirements of the sport, because like you just said, certain sports, like in strongman, because it's a strength sport, or if we're looking at football, it's good if you are like big and muscular and heavy and stuff, but for other sports, it might not be that good. I also competed, if you want to say, in Ninja Warrior. And that's also not so good to be that heavy, So I had also to cut way more down for that to get at least some more explosiveness and agility and grip endurance, because that was also important.
Have you heard of Jenny McCall? So she's the world's oldest ninja warrior, and she's actually been on the show. I think she was episode, let me see, where's Jenny? Jenny McCall was actually episode 6 of the Muscle Growth podcast. She's fantastic. She's 71 years old, and she did Ninja Warrior. She's the oldest ever Ninja Warrior.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, crazy. So, that's an interesting principle you mentioned, like by Bruce Lee with the Goldilocks principle of you can get bigger and stronger up until a point, but then after that point, like you said, he started getting slower. And I think that leads us quite nicely into the next kind of question. How do you train specifically for strength? How would you say it differs from bodybuilding training and just from other sport training in general?
So the thing is, you have to think about strength sports and strength training a bit more from a bigger perspective, and to look at it from a bigger perspective, because you have to develop certain capacities and certain positions and certain technical executions, which I don't say it's not necessary for bodybuilding, but you want to be as efficient as possible and as resilient as possible in that very position you are training, So that's why you have to spend a lot of time training these positions and these capacities, because we also don't think like bodybuilders mostly do. And I know there are these funny memes going around sometimes, where someone is doing a certain movement and quote unquote, a bodybuilder is standing next to it and asking which muscle is training that, this movement and stuff like that. But for us, it's the movement which we are looking at, and the range of motion, or that specific range where maybe a certain weakness appears in that movement, So there we might after start to think, okay, it's actually the movement, it's a technical inability, or it's a technical problem why the movement is now not getting better, or why we can't use heavier weights, or is it an inability from a certain muscle which can produce that much force, because compared to other muscles in that very movement, it's maybe not as developed as the other muscles, Or it might be, okay, maybe the muscle is developed enough, but the firing rate and the neurological activity, if you want to say so, isn't as high. You can, it's basically like a mind-muscle connection, or broken down on a really simple level, but in a different way, because it's not like, okay, you want to focus now in a deadlift on your hamstrings or on your glutes, It's just that, okay, the glutes aren't really firing as they should. That's why it's also sometimes going around is your glutes are sleeping, or you have to activate your glutes and stuff like that. The wording is a bit unlucky, but it kind of describes what we want to say about that, because it's not that the glutes aren't working at all or they are sleeping. It's just that the glutes could actually produce more force and could work better with other movements or with other muscles, but they're just not, because maybe there is some neurological inhibition, or just the recruitment pattern isn't as good, or the firing rate isn't as good. So there are many different things on which we have to look at strength training. Overall, pretty simple is, okay, we want to get more muscular, basically, because a bigger muscle potentially has more strength, On the other side, if you increase strength, you also have the potential to get more muscular up to a certain point, There's also the coordination, which you have to always think about, because if you want to get good at, like, let's say a log lift, if we are taking us from Strongman, you can't just train seated overhead press in a Smith machine, or shoulder press in a machine or something like that. You will get some kind of carryover because you will build your shoulders, you will build your triceps, you will build perhaps your traps and maybe your upper pecs, depending of the execution. But if you want to have a real carryover, you have to get closer to the actual movement or do the movement per se to get better at it. I hope I explained it.
Absolutely. No, I completely understand, and I'm sure the audience will as well. And it's a really important thing you mentioned there about specificity, and where you mentioned about how you can train Smith machine overhead press, and that's great, but it's not going to translate directly to your log press strength. It might indirectly, obviously, if you're getting stronger, like you said, you're developing the muscles, and if they're bigger and stronger, then maybe it will translate. But ultimately, for the strength sports that you do, you need to practice. If you're trying to get strong at log press, you need to practice log press with a log press a piece of equipment, not just any old piece of equipment you see. It needs to be specific. And I think that's really, really important. So I guess you'd say that your ability to recruit muscle fibers is really strong, being one of the strongest people in the entire world. Is that what you would say is a major thing for you? You have that mind-muscle connection. You have that ability to recruit all, maybe not all, but a large majority or a large portion of your muscle fibers to activate them to do the movement that you're trying to do.
Yeah, so there are actually even more pathways how you can increase your strength. So one is basically just typical intra and intermuscular coordination, which is just basically the recruitment of your muscles during a movement. The better this coordination gets, especially intermuscular coordination, so different muscles working with each other, the more potential of producing force you have, or developing strength, basically. But on the other way, you have also inhibiting systems. And one of this inhibiting system is the Golgi tendon organ, so the GTOs. The GTOs are basically sensors or receptors in your tendons, which they are sensing how much tension is getting on the tendon, and mostly on the tendon, but also on the muscle. But in the muscle, you also have the muscle spindles, which is another inhibiting sensor, basically. And these GTOs are usually very, very conservative. The evidence is suggesting that most of the people are running around with just 40% of allowance of the GTOs to let force happen and go from the muscle to the bone through the tendon. But you can decrease this GTOs, their sensitivity, basically. So you can desensitize this GTOs, these Golgi tendon organs. And by doing that, you, of course, need heavy weights. There are special methods. So normal strength training will also decrease that, but there are also special methods like static holds, like ultra or super heavy static holds, carries, like heavy yoke carries, heavy farmers, very heavy deadlifts, or just partials and stuff like that. They will also decrease the sensitivity. And with time, these GTOs will reduce their conservativeness, basically, and the evidence is suggesting that even elite athletes are just getting to around 80 to 90% of allowance. So there's still room for improvement, and what these GTOs does, and I know there are certain stories about this. The GTO, his mechanism, or the fact why is inhibiting the force production or the force transfer, is because actually our tendons are so strong that if we really are able to produce all the force which we have, we would break our own bones. And this happened already to certain people. So we are really actually really, really strong, or our muscles and our tendons are really, really strong. But because mostly before this has happened, our tendon is rupturing from the bone or the muscle is rupturing. So these are certain pathways how we can increase the strength. Understandable?
Yes. No, sorry. I think there's just a delay, but this is super interesting stuff. I've never heard of the GTOs before, but I think that's something I'm going to need to go and research, because I've got a very conservative nature, I think, naturally, but I'm trying my best to overstep that very kind of conservative nature, especially in the gym. I like the way people look at me when I'm going really heavy, and I'm like, okay, well, I know that this can go badly, but also you can slip in the shower and you can, so might as well really be pursuing something worthwhile. On that note, I know that you're pursuing a new world record. Can you tell us a little bit about it in the deadlift, I believe?
There are actually more world records which I want to attack.
Yeah, let's go for them.
Pretty much my biggest goal, and there are 2 world records which I'm.
Wait, before you tell us your next goals, I know you mentioned you have 2 world records already. Can you just tell us about those first, and then we'll go into your goals?
Yeah. So yeah. I wanted to speak anyway about the world records as goals. But the first 2, because there are a few more which I'm kind of there, but these 2 are, I know I'm pretty confident I'm there, and I just have to prep accordingly and properly, and I will hit this number. So the first one is the log lift world record. I'm a former log lift world record holder with 190 kilograms. And now it's at 193. So my overall goal, and this, since I hit the 190, I put this number in my head because I really want to do it, and to be the first U105, which is actually log pressing 200 kilos overhead.
I like the number. I think you should do it.
Yeah. So 200 kilos would be the first one, and that's something what I'm really confident I can do it, and I will certainly attack it this year. The second one is the Zercher squat world record, which now at the moment is at 280, if I'm not mistaken, at least in our category. And I did already 270 in training, and there I want to hit 300. Just because 300 is also such a nice number.
Hey, I like the way you think. That's incredible.
And I also want to hit, I tried it 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago I tried it, but there were some organizational problems, so I couldn't do it. And after I injured myself, very long story, but I have the European record in the U105s in the Atlas Stone load. So 215 kilos over 1 meter 20. The world record is at the moment at 228, and I would like to hit that. So 230 or more, depends on the stone. With stones, it's always a bit tricky because, you have, it's stone, they have to make it, and after the stone dries, and it's always a gameplay how much the stone in the end really weighs, And you mentioned it already, the deadlift world record already got broken. This last weekend, this Saturday, and it's now at 422. So that's also a world record I want to break, and I know I'm there. I'm not sure if I can do everything, because of course to prep for world records is quite demanding, especially if you also have other competitions, So I don't want to take too many things on me and to stress myself, because that would be just disadvantageous and just put a lot more pressure on me. And increase recovery and many, many more negative things. So the deadlift world record and the stone world record, I'm not sure, depends if there is a possibility and how everything goes. But the log lift world record and the Zercher world record, I will certainly attempt in October, usually, if everything goes right.
Sorry, I missed you there. Did you say you're definitely going for the log lift and the Zercher and the deadlift and Atlas Stone potentially?
Yeah, exactly.
Those are some really big goals, and I love the way that you chose 200 because it's a nice number, and then 300. Why not? Because it's a nice number. You could have said 275 or 280, but I like the way you're thinking 300, and I think you can definitely do it. I saw you do, I think it was, I've written it down. Let me see what it was. Yeah. I saw you do a 255 kilogram squat with an 8-second eccentric that I've never seen ever by anyone ever. That's insane.
Completely raw. So no
Completely
sleeves,
raw.
no belt, and with a camera.
No belt even.
No belt. Yeah.
That's absolutely, that's insane. That's really cool though. Well done to you.
Thank you.
I'd love to get close to that inner belt and sleeves. One day. So what would you say, like you mentioned the GTO, you said that the athletes and strength people have like 80 to 90% unlocked. What would you say, where's yours at currently? Would you say you're at 1995 and is that a percentage?
It's funny because this is some mind game, which I'm playing many times and I'm thinking there might be maybe a bit more to it, but I always wondered, and it's funny if you're looking at weight class athletes, especially in strength sports, like in strongman, in powerlifting, in Olympic weightlifting, you're seeing the small guys. They can create a lot amount of force and they are really, really strong and they're moving weights, which are like ridiculous, like 3 times body weight, some 4 times body weight, depending on the exercise, of course, but it's just ridiculous, but their muscles, the volume of their muscles aren't actually that big, and if you're comparing that to someone who's bigger, and if we're taking the thought of, okay, a bigger muscle is potentially a stronger muscle, so there is somewhere something missing. It's either the GTOs are still too conservative, and I know from I as a person, I have quite a lot of muscle, and I know, okay, my muscles are quite voluminous. I am muscular compared to others, compared also to the guys in my class, because I'm 175 centimeters, so 5'7" or 5'8", something like that. And I'm pretty small compared to many others. Many others are like 6 foot or something like that, so 185 or quite bigger than me. But they're also like not that muscular and they can still produce a lot of force. So I'm thinking, okay, if I'm more muscular, I should also be able to produce a lot more force because of the bigger muscle fibers and the more muscle fibers which I have. And that's why I'm thinking, actually, there should be more potential in me. So I don't know if it's still the GTOs. I don't know if there's if I still have to develop the firing rate, which you can, after 80%, maybe your listeners know this, but after 80%, basically on the bar, you are recruiting all your fast twitch muscle fibers. Until then, it's like the Henneman principle, where it's the size principle, the slow twitch, and after the intermediate, and after the fast twitch fibers. And after 80%, you are recruiting already all your muscle fibers. And the only thing which has to happen is the firing rate. So how fast these muscle fibers are switching on and switching off, and the faster this goes, the more strength you can produce. And, to some extent, you can also produce it faster, so you can, there's explosiveness and there's force and strength and many variables. So yeah, I'm thinking, okay, there should be somewhere something what I still can to improve quite drastically, if I can say so, so I'm able to produce even more force, and I'm still able to reach into new heights. I just have to figure out exactly, okay, what is holding me now back, if I can say so. It's the GTOs, which are still conservative, maybe not. So far, I had some injuries, nothing related to tendons, nothing related to bones. Yeah, so it might be, but it also could be something neurologically, so just the firing rate, rate of force development and stuff like that.
On that injury note that you just mentioned, do you and other strength athletes typically use peptides like BPC 157, TB 500 to aid in recovery? And are there other compounds that you also utilize?
Yeah, so when I got injured, or when I'm getting injured, I like to use BPC 157 and TB 500 because I know there is a bit of controversy about that, if they're really actually helping or not. But from personal experience, I can say they help, because, like, for example, if we're taking the Atlas Stone world record attempt, which I tried 2 years ago. So I got injured after because I tried the 230, because there was a lot of rest and it was in the sun. So I was dehydrated and some other things going on. So I got injured after. I tore partially both of my hamstrings. Yeah, I couldn't even really walk. My wife had to put on my socks and to help me the first few days to put my stuff on, to wash me. It was really funny. And 6 weeks after, I won Europe's Strongest Man. Yeah. And we had there a deadlift ladder, we had power stairs, we had a yoke run. So
it definitely works.
Yeah, it definitely helped.
Are you comfortable to talk about like your stack? So BPC, TB500 is a growth hormone, Anavar, testosterone, what else is in there for yourself? And then for typical strongmen, in general, would you say?
So now, yeah. So that's what I'm using. And when I'm injured, if not, I'm not using it. I'm also personally doing just more for longevity. Yeah. And just as a side note, I worked almost 10 years as a nurse. I saw how it is in hospitals. I saw how it is in old people's houses or homes. So I know what it means to get old and all this stuff. So for me, being healthy is really of a lot of high importance. So everything what I'm doing, even PED wise, is like very well thought, and with blood work and blood pressure, everything. So that's why, just for longevity and for recovery purposes, I'm using 1 unit of HGH, so of growth hormone, per day. And since last year, I'm down at 150 milligrams of test enanthate per week. Before that, I was 2 years on 250, and that was it. For certain competitions, I used around 3 to 4 weeks prior a bit of Halo as pre-workout, basically, for certain trainings, and as pre-workout basically for the competition. And that's it. I experimented a bit with Masteron, but I didn't feel any help. So that's what I'm on, and I had the gains of my life basically. And my blood markers are also really good. My heart rate is around 50. My resting heart rate, my HRV is good in range. My blood pressure is around 120 to 80 still. So yeah, my health markers are also fine. So everything is good. And as long as the side effects are like pretty much non-existent, I'm good with that, and the progress is also doesn't scream for, I'm stalling or something like that. So I don't need more, why should I?
That makes total sense. And it's so interesting that you were a nurse for 10 years. Well done to you. And I love that you're taking your health and things so seriously. I think it's very interesting. I think probably a lot of people that have world records maybe don't do that because they're more they care more about the world record than their health, maybe than the long term kind of game. So I think you've done incredibly well to be caring about the long term as well as hitting world records. I think that's phenomenal. And thank you for your transparency, for being open about PED usage. And I think that that's an incredibly low dose for anyone getting a world record. And that's basically a TRT or an HRT kind of typical dose. So that's incredible. So, if you ever, don't hit that, 300 Zercher or that, 200 log lift, you just up it to 250, and then you'll definitely, add in one or two, anavars, and you'll be 100%. You'll probably just smash all the world records. We won't even need to train.
Yeah, I think I'm a hyper responder to this kind of stuff. Maybe not to everything, but to test, maybe to test, I'm a pretty hyper responder, so that's why.
Yeah. So you've never tried Anavar?
No.
I'm not suggesting anything here, but.
Yeah, I know. I talked already with, also with some of my coaches, who I'm working with and stuff. And they also said like, hey, Anavar would be a good option.
No, definitely. But that's really incredible. And I think you must have obviously you have some of the elitist genetics in the world to be a world record holder. Yeah. But also, like you said, you're definitely a hyper responder. Yeah. And I don't want the people listening to think that they can do the same small amounts of PEDs that you do and then achieve what you've just achieved, or what you've achieved so far and what you're still going to achieve, because it's unlikely that they will be able to do that. But well done to you. Let's see what next. So I've seen you pulling tanks and planes, probably cars. What's the inspiration, and what was your favorite thing to pull?
Yeah, so that's typical Strongman. And usually we in Strongman have anyway truck pulls, so that's pretty standard and pretty normal to pull any kind of truck. Sometimes tractors, depends of the competition and the event. I pulled so far tractors and trucks. We tried to pull the plane and the tank. Of course, the tank is not possible. There was once in Russia, a few years ago, 8 strongmen, like really heavyweight strongmen, they tried to pull a tank, and I think they pulled it just one turn of the chain.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Of the tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they pulled it only one turn, and after it stopped again. And the tank had, I think it was around 50 tons or 60 tons. It's actually, it sounds maybe ridiculous, but it's actually not that heavy.
Yeah.
But because the tank doesn't have wheels, and with the chain and stuff, it's like impossible. And the plane was, the plane is also around the 50 tons, but it's really highly dependent about the tires, because if the plane stays too long on one spot and it's not moving, the tires are getting flat. And after to turn, the tire is like really hardcore. And it also is like highly dependent about the street. The street has to be level, because if there is any kind of
slope
or something like that, you won't be able to move it. So we had the possibility here when we did this video with a huge German or Austrian fitness influencer who has like around 2 million YouTube followers or subscribers, and on Insta also almost 500,000. So he wanted to get all or some big fitness influencers together, so on social media. And he also, because I was in connection with him, I worked a bit for him for his app. And he also called me after as the strongest man of Austria and the strongest man from Germany. And we all after got somehow to the army, because he had some connections with them. And that's where we tried to pull the tank, and the plane was really, really nice. So it was a nice experience. It was just pretty unfortunate because we were in February there and it was like really cold. It was like almost, I think it was -degrees because there was still a bit of snow there. Where the plane was, it was a wind going like you almost flew away, So was hardcore.
It sounds hardcore.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's so cool. Yeah. And what have you ever gotten your genetics tested? To hear Emanuel's response and much more, you're going to have to tune in again on the next episode of the Muscle Growth Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Muscle Growth Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating and a quick review. It helps us grow and reach more people just like you. Don't forget to follow us on all major social media platforms, including Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and X. Find us at the Muscle Growth Podcast and at Reps with Roscoe. For more insights, exclusive content, and full episodes, visit themusclegrowthpodcast.com. Your support truly makes a difference, so please like, share, comment, and follow. We're grateful for every bit of it. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and staying focused on getting bigger, stronger, and better.